Welcome, everybody, to Kids vs. Stars, Episode 4. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm FIDE Master Mike Klein. If you have a young child in your house, he or she may know me as Fun Master Mike, and we hope to be joined soon by Grandmaster Ben Feingold. You know, he's got a little presence on Chess Kid as well. His nickname there is Ben Zoo, and Ben is working out some technical difficulties. We hope to have him join the zoo, but we have a very fun match today because Grandmaster Danya Naroditsky is the next Grandmaster to throw his metaphorical hat in the ring and play against 4 kids. I don't know why these Grandmasters sign up for it, except that it's a very unique challenge. And honestly, it makes for pretty good TV. So in less than half the time it takes you to watch The Brutalist, we will see if the kids are brutal against Danya. He's going to play a clock simul, which means the kids can move absolutely whenever they are ready. Anish was just barely able to get past the kids. And now, of course, it is Danya's turn to be able to do that. So we have got 4 very talented kids. You see them on the screen. We've got the defending America's Cup champion, International Master Alice Lee, who, by the way, was the one kid who took down Anish in our last match back in late 2024. We've got FIDE Master Tani Adewumi, the bearer of 3 IM norms. He just needs the rating. He's knocking on the door. International Master Aaron Mendes, I believe the youngest IM in Canadian history. He won the North American Youth Championship last year to get the title conferred. But, you know, he's almost 2,400, so he's going to make it the natural way anyway. And, of course, WFM Bodhana Sivanandan staying up late in the UK. She actually just played the British Women's Blitz Championship this weekend. So she's pretty fresh. She got a lot of warm-up games, I think 14 to be exact. So that is quite a quartet that Danya has to deal with here. It's going to be, it's going to be a massive challenge. I'll put it that way. There we see the kids on the screen. They look rather awake. I know Tani had to speed home from school just to be able to make this. So thank you, MTA. Okay, whatever train Tani took to get home, he clearly was on time. So we definitely appreciate that. We should probably take a look at the format. And here it is. So 4 kids are going to play simultaneously against Danya. And it's a team event. So Danya's trying to get to 2.5 out of 4. Danya's like his own Olympic team, basically, okay? And the 4 kids, they're trying to get to 2.5 out of 4 collectively. They will be able to see each other's game, so they'll be able to know whether or not to take a draw offer. Actually, no draw offers are allowed, but whether or not to go for a draw. And there you see the time control. We gave Danya a little less time than Anish because Danya is faster. Sorry, Anish, but, you know, he is. So Danya gets 60 minutes. Kids get 15. It's pretty common for Danya to get 4 times the amount of players because there's 4 players. There you go, 15-second increment. And let's get our main man on the screen, Grandmaster Danya Naroditsky in the waiting. Danya, how are you doing today?
I'm really good, Mike. I can't believe I'm the old guy now. I'm officially the old guy. This is the moment when the transition has happened. I've been referring to myself that way now for probably a couple of years, but now it's official.
Okay, well, we both live in Charlotte, so we'll talk about what doctors you visit later on off screen, but we have a chess match to play. And of course, the one thing I really want to know is, why do Grandmasters sign up to do this? I mean, it's just for fun, just for posterity. Why did you agree to do this? It's pretty thankless.
Well, first of all, side note, I'm also welcoming my stream to the show, so you guys can let me know if you can hear me all right. Why do I do this? I mean, I ask myself this question every time I sit in front of a chessboard, whether virtually or over the board. But in all seriousness, Mike, it really is a privilege for me as someone whose calling is not just playing chess, but also teaching chess and doing my very small part to help this incredibly exciting next generation of young talents from all across the world to grow into, of course, the Grandmasters that they all will be. Probably one day in the not so distant future. It really is a great privilege for me to do what I can. And it's really fun. I like giving simuls. I like these smaller clock simuls. I've done it in the Charlotte Elite Camp for a couple of years now. And, we're all gluttons for punishment, chess players. I think it's in our blood. It's in our DNA. And I have absolutely no doubt that I'm going to face the severest of punishments. I mean, Tani was beating me in our one-on-one game at the World Rapid. Now I've got to play 3 others.
Yeah, this is a huge challenge. And in fact, I know from our communications, you're taking this match really seriously. Do you want to reveal any of the prep you did? You didn't just show up today and turn the camera on. What did you do to get ready for this one?
Well, mostly, it's not that I planned to do prep. I prepared to do preparation, and that actually took up more time. The stage of planning the preparation that I'm going to do took up more time than the actual preparation. So unfortunately, my plans were not entirely realized. off the board. Hopefully, I'll do better on the board. But I did, look at my opponents. Of course, I know Alice. I have the great privilege of knowing Alex and Tani personally. I hope that I get to meet Aaron and Bodhana, and I'm sure I will at a tournament in the near future. But, I looked at their games. I decided essentially what I'm going to play, and I'm going to try to steer the game into comfortable territory for me. And there is a generational battle kind of going on here. So as much as I want to see these kids grow, I want to see them grow and become GMs, but after they lose this game. Just kidding. We'll see. Yeah. I'm mean and I'm crotchety and I'm old, Mike. What can I say?
Welcome to the long descent into curmudgeonness. We'll talk about that off camera as well. You were coaching all weekend, helping the Charlotte Chess Center. So this is the problem with being a Renaissance man. You're always, being asked to do this and that. But we're certainly glad to have you today. Last question before we get going. When Anish played his match against the four kids in November, he told us after the match his goal was to make a quick draw with Grandmaster Andy Woodward to focus on the other games. He actually ended up beating Andy because he got such an easy position to play. But do you have any kind of overarching strategy for how to play this clock simul today?
I'd say two things. I am thankful to Anish. He has kids of his own. He's got a kid named Daniel, actually. And that's not enough for him. He needs to seek out more kids to face. But I think my strategy in these types of simuls is typically to play fast. I know that will come as a great shock to everybody. But I will be playing, of course, not for the flag, but it is very important for me to avoid the all-out time scrambles. I think if it gets down to a couple seconds on a couple of boards, it's complete chaos, and that's what I want to try to avoid. And the second thing I say is I will try to invest a lot of energy into the opening, because I think when you're giving simuls and you have particularly one game that's really, really bothering you, or you have a bad position, it can tend to spiral. And very often, you'll dedicate all of your mental energy to that board, and it's like a no-win game of whack-a-mole, where then you'll blunder on another board, and on we go. So I'm taking this seriously. I think that's the least that I can do for these talents. I know that they're all very busy. Tani just had school, so I'm really grateful that they're giving up time in their busy days, and I will try to reciprocate with my A game. Although judging by my recent form, Mike, I cannot promise that.
I think you played just fine in New York under the big lights, so I think you'll do well. Chat, let us know who you got in this match. We'll let Danya go, but before I do, Danya, I am going to promise you, if you win, you get a salted caramel brownie from local French bakery Amelie's, so you have a little something on the line. Bonne chance, mon ami.
Thank you. This coffee is from Amelie's, and I assume the games will start automatically, Mike, and I'll see the little toolbar of games. Do I need to enable a setting so that it doesn't switch automatically?
I don't think so, okay. But I will definitely have my tech team let you know if anything is amiss. And
I'm ready.
Yeah, we should be ready to go. All right. Well, good luck to you. We'll say goodbye to Danya. We might jump into his audio once or twice. And again, if you do want to listen to Danya's thoughts, he will be talking a little bit on his own channel, but more commentary will be happening here because I have the luxury of not playing four super talents. There we see the kids. They're just about ready. And I see no reason why we're going to delay. I think we're going to kick this off any moment now, and all the games will start at the same time. Danya gets 60 minutes. The kids get 15. We are giving the kids 5 minutes more than we did against Anish. I do want to just say that Danya did not give us a restriction on who to invite. It's not like he said, "Oh, Alice, she beat Anish, don't invite her." So we gave him some pretty strong competition, and at any moment we will see which of them are able to get things going. Now, Alice is kind of like the returning champion. If we had a returning champion, it would be her. She always has that periodic table behind her just in case a science trivia question comes up. Tani's had a long day of school. The thing I'm worried about with Bodhana is it's really late. She's our youngest player, and it's starting at 9 p.m. her time. Now, before you get to thinking that Chess Kid, we're just not nice to Bodhana, we had to fit in Tani getting off school with Bodhana being awake. So there's this one little sweet spot, and she looks primed to go. Aaron, you might remember as the 2023 Chess Kid Youth Speed Chess Champion. So he has his bona fides on Chess Kid. He's probably going to be on the Canadian national team. I don't know. I mean, it's actually possible that he will play in 2026 for the Canadian Olympiad team. It's not outside, the realm of possibility. It kind of depends on whether or not the chess bras decide that they want to compete, although it doesn't look like they've been wanting to lately. We love the chess bras. It's just, they're streamers, kind of like me. I think I think if you offered Danya a draw against Alice in the first 5 minutes, I think in his heart of hearts he would say yes. But he's kind of a competitor. He's not going to be like so tactical in that way where he's just going to just go for a quick draw. But in his heart of hearts, I think he might play a little more conservatively against Alice. So it's going to be really interesting how a bullet specialist handles this type of event. When I was growing up, Kasparov played this event because Kasparov needed the practice. He played, I think, the entire German national team clock simul, maybe the entire Israeli national team. I don't remember the exact countries, but remember that being a pretty cool, cool challenge, right? Now, Danya's done one thing that none of these kids have done at their age. He was a published author, I believe, at the age of 14. Bodhana's not quite 14. But Alice, Tani, Aaron, put pen to paper. Huh? Get busy. I should probably write a book too, but I haven't done that yet. So I think we're going to kick off these games in about 10 seconds or so. And let's time Danya. How fast can he make moves on all four boards? He's actually getting up at the wrong moment. But when he comes back, I want to see, can he make 4 different moves on 4 different boards in less than a second? I don't really know if we have a way of timing this. Okay, here he goes. He's got E4 against Alice. And how fast can he toggle between the other games? Our game ops team may be slower than Danya. It might take our game ops team a second or two to toggle between the boards to start them. But we do have some moves here. And we're looking at the game with Danya and Alice. We'll stay on the 4 boards here just to see what openings he picks. We have a Sicilian. And what's he going to pick? Okay, he's playing knight f3. He's not after my heart. He's not playing the Alapin, but fighting chess already. By the way, we'll probably say this a couple of times today, but the kids are not only wise, but pretty much encouraged to play to checkmate. First of all, no draw offers are allowed, number 1. But number 2, they literally help their teammates by doing so. So even if a player gets down a knight or a rook or something, they probably will. Now, I know there's some stories in like regular simuls where the grandmaster is playing the kid and the kid is playing on down a queen. But that's different because every board is sort of its own universe. This is literally a team event. Also, it's online chess where, playing till checkmate or playing down a queen is kind of common. But they are, obviously trying to occupy Danya's attention so he cannot focus on the other boards. And by the way, Danya and I have taught at the same camp before in Atlanta, and we did an in-person clock simul every year. And at that in-person simul, I would have kids play down a queen and just wait for me to turn my back and go to the other side of the room. I actually have a special strategy for how to deal with those kids. Okay, we had a small hiccup, but we'll get back to the games. Maybe, probably we're just going to make sure that all the players are in where they need to be. It's actually, it's more fair if all the games start at the same time, so one kid doesn't start a minute or 2 later. So I have a feeling Danya and Alice will repeat the same moves. They did not agree to a draw. I know I suggested he'd be happy with the draw against Alice. That's not what's happening today. For those of you that just joined us, this is Kids versus Stars, episode 4. Even though it's episode 4, it's our second time doing GM versus 4 kids. Our first time was a lot of fun back in November. Anish just scooched by the kids. I think Sapiko was dealing with 3 kids. Anish was dealing with 4. And by the way, they did a fun interview with Chess Base India recently together where they were both enjoying talking to each other without kids. So I think Anish may have played to get away from his kids. Danya, like me, is a bachelor. He doesn't have any biological kids, but he's a great coach at the Charlotte Chess Center. And he had dozens of kids this weekend that he was coaching at the North Carolina State Championship. So I hope those kids did well. I haven't been able to connect with them. Bodhana was the busiest this weekend. Like I said, she played the British Women's Blitz Championship. I hope it was British, not English. I think I'm right. Okay. Never want to get that distinction wrong. I believe it was the British Women's Championship. Okay. We're restarting. And as you might be able to guess, same opening. Alice has decided that she didn't walk into prep. She's already seen knight f3 on the board. Okay. And she's repeated her Sicilian. Now, if Danya plays something besides knight f3, that'd be fascinating because that would show me that, I don't know, he won something different out of the opening. Okay. He's played knight f3 against Aaron. And he's going to play some sort of ready or King's Indian attack setup. We'll see which center pawn he pushes. He also played knight f3 against Tani, e4 against Bodhana. We've got a French against Bodhana. So he's chosen e4 against the 2 girls and knight f3 against the 2 boys. What does that mean? I don't know. But later on, when I jump into Danya's ear and I bug him a little bit, we'll find out. Okay, bishop c4. Actually a strange move. Now, not for Danya, because he's better than I'll ever be, but in my world as a kid chess coach, I basically tell kids that bishop c4 is a mistake in the Sicilian because black has not yet committed the e-pawn. You can see Alice is already like pausing here. You can see her, straining a little bit. It's such a rare move. But the idea that I usually explain to kids is that black can play e6, which blunts the power of the bishop. And we're going to see it on the big screen here. Okay. And the problem for white, and I know Danya's got some sort of way to overcome this, is that black is going to be able to get the move d5 in. In fact, there's one trap. Let's just show it to you. If white plays knight c3 to prevent this d5 move, and then black plays this move knight f6 to try to force this move, the trap is it's a mistake to play e5. And here's the trap. Because now black will play the move knight to g4, double attacking the pawn. You can't play d4 because I'll just take, and then your pawn is hanging. So you've got to play queen e2. And then black just very quickly plays queen c7, and there's no way to guard the pawn a third time. And even if you play knight b5, the queen will just hop back. I know it looks a little bit weird to bring your queen back to the back row, but you're going to win this pawn, and you're going to play a6 and b5 to gain space on the queen side, gain some tempos. And yeah, this is just much, much better for black. So computer might say black's not ahead by more than a pawn, but I think in practical terms, losing a center pawn is pretty bad. Okay, so that's a pretty cool trap. Let's go back to the actual game. And yeah, Alice is still, I don't know if you could say laboring, right? It's only the third move of the game. But she is wondering why bishop c4 has happened. So we are waiting for her reply, basically. What do we got on some of the other games? I don't know, actually. I think I see a very interesting position in the Tani game because the B pawn looks like it may have been sacrificed. That's commonly called the poisoned pawn. And let's see if it's actually poisoned. Tani is playing some very uncompromising chess. Let's switch to that game. All right. Now, how did we get here? Does Tani have compensation for being down a pawn? Of course, he's got the center. We call that the snowplow, but I would love to back up and see exactly how that pawn was sacrificed. I'm already out of my opening knowledge, which is no surprise because I don't know any openings. But if we go back to this position, after c4, we have ourselves a ready, but this bishop has already developed early, which makes the b7 pawn a little bit weak. So when black bolsters the center with c6, then after takes queen b3, Tani decides that there's probably no good way to save this pawn, at least in his eyes, and he decides to sacrifice it. I guess Tani could have moved the queen, and the queen may belong on c8. If you bring the queen to c7, I could see this bishop landing on f4 one day and winning a tempo on your queen. I could even see this knight coming out. And let's play the moves on the board here. If we play this move, knight to c3, this pawn is being double attacked, and the knight is ready to jump to b5 and make the queen move again. So there may not have been a great way to save the pawn. If we go back, though, b6 is, of course, incredibly risky because the bishop is already lined up with the rook. And after knight c3 anyway, I could see black being very uncomfortable with all of these weak light squares and the bishop just sort of laying there in wait. So we had a sacrifice by Tani. If we go back to this position, he played knight c6, allowing the pawn to be captured. He defended the knight. That's a little bit obscure when you have to defend by going backward. I do suspect, based on the clock situation, that Tani has had this in his prep. I happen to know he's working with a new coach. I'm not going to reveal who it is, but it's a very esteemed coach. And I'm actually kind of wondering if he prepped for Danya with his coach. But it's a little bit unfortunate you have to go backward to defend the knight. If you guard with the rook, then you lose the ability to bring the rook back to attack the queen. And you don't really have a natural way to guard with the queen because the queen also has to stay in connection with the rook. The knight has no squares. So yeah, I guess this is some sort of main line. The queen runs away. And we'll get to the live position here. Queen gets attacked. No surprise there. We have a check. You can't block with the knight more than likely because pawn to d4 looks like a problem. So if we go back to the game, Danya played knight back to d2. Now, that may look incredibly weird to bring the knight back. It is probably the case that this knight did not go here because of e4, e3. That is a very common, sometimes it's positional, sometimes it's a tactical idea. I'm not using the engine, but let's just see if this is right. pawn to e4, and the eval bar didn't change. So yay! Before my grandmaster commentator friend gets here to help me with the analysis, I can be happy I got at least one move right. And now the problem is this pawn may come to e3 and really wreck the pawn structure. In fact, where does the poor knight go? If it goes to h4, pawn to g5, I think wins the knight. And if the knight goes backward, I am just going to guess we can push. And after takes, play the move knight to g4, and there's maybe no good way to guard this pawn because this knight is pinned. And in fact, the eval bar says that black is just winning. Why do I know all this? Because I play the Perts and the Modern as black, so I know all about these sort of ideas that you have to watch out for. So Danya has played knight on f back to d2. Computer gives the exclaim. Computer says you're doing a-okay. And this is a live position. I'm lucky, we are lucky that we got such a dynamic game. The sacrifice of a pawn for very quick development, very good control of the center. And right now, Danya's pieces are sort of stepping on each other, but Tani has to act fast because if white castles and plays a3 and stuff to start getting out of the pin, knight c3 maybe, then the pawn will mean something. So a lot of chess left. Okay, where else can we go? We have not seen Bodhana's board. We've not seen Aaron's board. Bodhana's board has pieces going everywhere. I think we should jump to Bodhana's board and see how the little tiger from England is doing. So let me just toggle there. I've actually misplaced my cursor. I can't do a show without a cursor. With a co-host, I can barely do a show, but without a cursor, I'm struggling. Okay, this is, well, we already knew it was a French, but it's very plainly a French by what we've seen. This is one of those positions where white gives the pawn, but hopes to win it back later. And if we look here, it is Danya's clock ticking. If I just do a quick check of the clock, so we won't have to change boards or anything. Yeah, his time is ticking on most of the boards. So this is what you don't want to have happen. I know you go into the match and you're like, I'm going to play super quick. I'm going to stockpile time, but then the chess happens. So, but it looks like in this position, he's debating whether or not to take the knight and then grab the pawn. Now, if we play a long variation, it might be that his c-pawn is hanging. So let's make some moves. We get the luxury of doing so. Bishop takes knight. Pawn takes. He's now weakened this pawn. So he can take with either knight. Probably doesn't matter a lot which one I take with first. Now, black could take back. White could take back. Black could take back. White could take back. And at the end of everything, black grabs this pawn and remains up a pawn. However, don't sleep on the fact that the black king is in the middle of the board and this pawn is not blockaded. It's actually quite interesting. I know it looks like black is threatening this square a million times, but if a pawn is not physically blockaded, you do have to figure out what happens if the pawn comes forward, and that move could be a problem. Now, before we just go saying that black is lost, I mean, this pawn is hanging and the e-file is about to be opened. Black can play pawn takes, and the queen defends. However, black has exactly zero protection of the dark squares, and white, while being down two pawns, could be for preference. How does white jump on those dark squares? Well, that's a question for Danya. Okay. Obviously, bishop to e5 is possible, but black can probably castle and defend. So that move is not striking my fancy. It could be we play this slowly. Notice that black's rooks are not connected. This could be one of those positions where the computer calmly wants us to play rook c1. And when the rooks trade, we probably are going to get a rook down the chessboard. It's a little bit of a pity to give up the action on the e-file, but it could be that some sort of slow move like this is best. So black takes, white takes. Now, does black have time to stop rook c7 with bishop c6? Maybe. Probably black's queen side is collapsing anyway, because even if you play bishop c6, maybe my queen jumps in, I start picking off pawns. But remember, black is up two pawns. So if black has to give one or two back to consolidate and get the king castled, black might be okay. It's an easier position for white to play, though, for the next couple of moves, right? Because white is doing all the targeting and black is doing all of the defending. So bishop here, probably. And now, see, if you could somehow get your queen to guard that square, you could prevent castling because you'd be threatening bishop d6. It's actually not that easy for our queen to actually target this square. You can probably win the a5 pawn whenever you want, but, you know, that's only one of the two pawns that you're down, so. Okay, well, before we check in with Danya, we want to check in a little bit earlier rather than later. I think it'd be a little bit cruel if I checked in with him if he got low on time or anything. Let's at least take one look at his game with Aaron Mendes. We've not looked at that one game yet. This is the future hope of our friends up north. And I do say that, our friends up north. Let's go back to chess. We have equal material. Both sides have the bishop pair. And yeah, not a lot going on as far as dynamic differences. It is Danya's move in this game. He's keeping his time in the high 50s. Interestingly, he's taken less time than Aaron so far. For those of you looking at your screen wondering, why do the kids have so little time? I do want to bring up that we ran this test. This is the B part of the A-B test. We ran this test rather unintentionally in November with Anish. We started the kids with only 10 minutes, and Anish got 65. And that looked really, really like a large discrepancy. But actually, Anish was the one that got in time pressure more than the kids. So we're giving the kids a little more time now. I think it looks a little better for Danya to get 4x the amount of time because he's playing 4 kids. If there is an industry standard for clock simuls, perhaps this is it. All right, what's going on in this game, though, for Danya? Not a lot. Where to put the queen? I mean, b3. He put it there against Tani, and it kind of looks like the natural square, targeting, again, the b pawn. Put your rooks in the middle of the chessboard. Maybe he's considering hopping a knight to d6. I could see this. Knight to d6 is essentially a fork. Because if I play knight to d6, you can't move your rook. Because if you move your rook, well, you probably can't move your rook. This pawn looks like it's guarding too many things. I don't know in what world Aaron would move his rook, but if he did, knight takes. And now, of course, you can't take back because your knight's hanging. You could throw in queen takes queen, but now we get to have a lot of fun. Because now white, first of all, white's probably just better by taking, right? Because black has ruined pawns and white has the bishop pair. But if you're white, you could play this check. And the king would have to go here because you have to recover the knight. And now if you're white, when you take, you have forced the king to this square. So which would you rather have as white? Would you rather have the king on h6? Or would you rather have the pawn on f5? Probably the pawn on f5, although you do have this move rook d7 right away, which might win material. But okay, none of this is important because I can tell you that there's absolutely no way that Aaron is going to play this. If we go way, way back, all we've proven is that black has to capture. That's all we've proven. White will take back. Danya will enjoy the bishop pair, and Danya will press for the next 100 moves of the bishop pair. That's my guess. Will Danya take with the bishop or the queen? I'm going to say bishop. I think that bishops are more dynamic with the queens on the board, and these dark square weaknesses around Aaron's king are going to be more salient if the queens are on the board. By the way, this is kind of like a side competition I have. I know Danya is streaming right now, and Danya's got, 5x bigger vocabulary than me. However, we're going to see who is a better sesquipedalian today. Danya, beat that. Who's the better sesquipedalian? I threw salient in. Break out your dictionary when you're watching Danya's broadcast. I'm probably going to go back to smaller words. All right, let's go back to the live position and see what's happening. Yeah, Danya is still considering what to do here. Maybe there's more to it than knight to d6. Maybe he's just looking for better, but it's a pretty simple move to analyze. Now, before I jump in, we'll just stay on the, actually, let's go to the 4-board setup because I'd love for the viewers to see what I'm seeing. How many of the boards is his clock ticking on? Am I going to be nice to the kids and jump in when it's Danya's move on all 4 boards? That'd be pretty funny. Okay, it's definitely Aaron's move. Danya, I think, has played the knight d6 move. I see he has the bishop pair. Okay, it looks like it's Alice's move. It is Tani's move. And it's Bodhana's move. Okay, I think this is actually a pretty good time for us to jump into Danya's audio. And we can leave on all 4 boards. Of course, I can't help him in any way. Let's see if we can bug Danya and see how he's thinking about the match so far. I'm very curious to hear what he has to say.
I mean, now I have all sorts of ideas. I have the c5 square. Well, let's try to be very precise here while I have a chance. Bishop f6 is not a thing. Knight e5 not a thing. Rook ac1 not a thing. Knight b3 allows knight e4. Bad. Alice played a really nice move. I think this is a key moment here. What about queen b3? Then knight takes d4, not a thing. Takes, knight f3, no. Just ruling out the tactical options here. Of course, I have like queen d3. I'm not scared, but what about rook d1? If takes, knight e4. Queen b6. Bishop f6. Bishop f6. This looks very drawish. Maybe this is a good result, but at least it feels like I should be trying for more. It feels like I must be better here. There's just no way. There's no way I'm not better here. It's somewhere there. I have to find it.
Danya, Funmaster Mike jumping in. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mike.
I know you're deep in thought. I won't take long. How do you feel the 4 boards are going so far?
I'm terrified that when it comes down to your move for move calculation, you pray. So I'm praying for Tani's board. I'm very happy with the French I have in Bodhana's game, or Naroditsky's game against Bodhana, however you please. I'm fairly happy with this board if I can find a concrete solution to this small question of the d4 pawn being hanging. And with Aaron, I feel like, again, if I can keep the tactics under control, I'm slightly better. I'm pretty happy overall. It will all depend on the next 3-4 moves in the Tani game. Okay, well, that's my cue to leave you alone. I don't envy what you're doing. It's now 4v2, Danya and Kaisa against the 4 kids. Danya, I'll let you get back to it. That's right. Thanks, Mike. All right, that was cool to hear him in such deep analysis, and he's such a nice guy. He has every right to bite my head off for jumping into his audio when he's in deep calculation, but you can see him focusing. This is the part where, when he has concrete calculation, you can't skip that. He can't just make natural moves. If he sees a concrete variation, first of all, it's in his nature as a top grandmaster to analyze it, but sometimes only concrete variations will get you where you want to be. He was very concerned about his D-pawn. I didn't hear all of his analysis, but you can see he's just defended his D-pawn against Alice, but he looks pretty confident on all 4 boards. And, he's actually got his queen running around the board on 3 of the 4 boards. And that's something that you have to be really careful about, because any misstep, your queen gets trapped, forked, pinned, skewered, discover attack, deflected. I'm running out of tactics here. He's got to be really, really careful. So that's cool. I can also see, we can't hear him anymore. We can see his lips moving. Even though he told me before the broadcast, he may limit his comments to focus on the games. At the end of the day, you are who you are. Danya is an educator. He's a streamer, and you can see him talking, which is awesome. That you just can't help it. I actually had this same problem on my Beat Fun Master Mike show when I was doing it. I would always tell my viewers, I'm going to go quiet now because I want to not lose on time. And then I'd end up talking and losing on time. So pretty cool stuff. I'd love to get back to the Bodhana game because Bodhana's not going to castle today. I'm sorry, Bodhana. You may not sleep because I'm keeping you up late, but you also may not castle. And let's go to the current live position. And we see the dreaded double banger. Not even an intero bang, a double question mark. What did Danya do? Well, let's see. His queen was on g7. And this is what I mean. I was just kind of casually mentioning that your queen might get trapped. Rook on c to g8 is not a queen trap. However, when the queen runs away, the rook is lined up on g2. G2 is, of course, a light square. Now, luckily for Danya, this bishop is completely buried. But you could see him being a little bit concerned about this state of affairs. So what did he do? Well, played the very natural move, queen g3, right? Just get her out of there. Now, I do want to mention, sometimes when the computer gives you a double question, I don't get the double exclams. It's not because you've thrown away the game. You may have just missed a much better move. So if we go back, that seems to be what's happened in this position. What was the better move? Man, in a closed position, it's actually really hard for me to say. Does the computer want us to get incredibly greedy and capture this pawn? That seems weird, especially with our D pawn hanging. So this is a total mystery to me. What would have been the better move? Maybe the computer just wants us to play bishop back and guard our center pawn. By the way, this pawn should be mentioned is also poisoned. That's the theme of today's show, okay, all about poisoned pawns, because if that pawn is captured, one of Danya's rooks will go to the B file, we'll capture this pawn, and I don't need to analyze anymore. If you're the black king, you can't allow that to happen. So maybe just guarded this pawn. Okay, live position though, queen goes back to g3, rook goes to c2, missing an opportunity. Probably the opportunity was to capture. Yes, that was black's best move. Looks a little bit weird to take, but this pawn has got such strong defense that even putting a rook on the D file might be hard for Danya to ever break through. We can understand why Danya and Bodhana, if Danya was her dad, they'd be
Danya. No, that doesn't make any sense. But you can understand why Bodhana doesn't want the D file to get opened up. So she played a little more of a conservative move. She wants to, here's the problem. She doubles her rooks to concentrate all of her forces and win the entire queen side. This pawn is going to be the problem. There's the rub. I feel like Danya is quoting every Shakespeare and every classic piece of literature. This bishop will take, and then black's forces will have nothing to run back to the king side to stop the H-pawn from advancing. So that could be the problem. Now, can she compete with just 2 pieces on the queen side? Maybe. If she takes, it's not like giving away the C file is certain death to her king. So fascinating idea, but computer likes white's position much better. In fact, strangely enough, the queen might even run back one day because now none of the rooks can come to the G file. And if this rook runs all the way over here, then, the fall of Olympus will happen. Queen will take, H-pawn will probably decide the game before black can do anything of consequence on the queen side. So let's see if anything has happened here. We go to the live position. And yes, we had a couple of moves. Let's see. The queen traveled to E3 to shore up the center of the chessboard. As mentioned before, Danya wants the B pawn to be captured, not the D pawn. He's also targeting the H pawn. Now the H pawn is definitely going to fall if he ever decides to go for it. Queen back to B6. And now he's trying to decide whether or not to capture the pawn. Honestly, I think he'll do it. The only problem with capturing is that your bishop is essentially pinned. If your bishop capture ever moves, then you lose the H-pawn. So that does kind of tie up your queen and your bishop. That's probably the only really kind of major concern. The more conservative move might be to offer a trade of rooks. And if you lose the pawn, then you control the C file. And is anything brewing on the C file? Not quite sure. So fascinating ideas here. Tani sacrificed a pawn a long time ago. Much has happened since then. And I think it might be a good opportunity to scoot on over to the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Not going to dox you, Tani. Don't worry. Okay. But Tani does live in New York City. He is a proud member of the Columbia Grammar High School chess team. I'm sure they'll be competing at the Super Nationals in Orlando. And if any of you are going to be there as a parent, a coach, or a player, you'll see me there. Chess Kid will be there. In fact, we're going to have the first ever National Puzzle Championship in partnership with US Chess. It's actually US Chess's event in partnership with us, but that'll be pretty cool. Okay, what does Tani have in compensation for his pawn? He has himself a monster pin on this knight. Now, at some point, he took this knight on A3 to lose the bishop pair. However, this pin looks worth it. Okay, I hope for Danya's sake it's his move. Tanya, is Tanya Sachdev here? I'm having a little bit of a problem between Danya, Bodhana, and Tani. I'm going to get this right before the day is over. Triple attack on the knight. And now I'm expecting queen b2. I mean, it's certainly the first move that comes to my mind. I think Tani is going to win his pawn back. The question is, will he win it back under favorable circumstances? Corollary question is he going to win both A pawns? Okay, so queen here to b2. And now I have blundered. It was going to happen, and it has happened, but I need to know how I've blundered. Could it be that the rook comes to b1, and when the queen moves, we play some sort of incredibly fancy knight move? Probably not, but it's actually possible. Let's see. I didn't mean to draw that arrow. Rook over. Rook over. Okay, queen takes something, right? I don't know. Pick a pawn, any pawn. Okay, let's pick this one because it guards the bishop. Now, I am thinking knight takes knight is winner, winner, and black's entire position is for dinner. We lose the queen, but if he takes our queen, we take this rook, we take the other rook, and the king is also incredibly weak, by the way. Let's just show this because it's not every day that you lose the entire fort. King moves where? If king moves here, we can save the knight with check. In fact, after king here, we have one in-between move, and when the king moves, two in-between moves. And you know what this reminds me of, chat? The missed tactic that Vichy had against Magnus in 2014. It was actually incredibly similar to this. Then the rook will come over and take, and yeah, black is just down too much material. I guess the king could have gone to d7, but then what? I don't know, does the bishop get in the game with check? I think black is just down too much material. So let's go to the live position. Tani is probably realizing this. I know he doesn't want to back up the queen, but I think he probably has to. So very nice move by Danya. And again, you can't substitute the general for the specific. He had to do specific calculation to realize that queen b2 fails tactically. By the way, if queen b2 does not fail tactically to rook b1, then white might lose all of the queenside pawns. Might lose that one, and then followed by knight takes one day, might lose the other one. But the proof is in the pudding. The B file is the only file that seems to be important in today's matches. We see Danya very, very hard at work there. I noticed before, right before we jumped into his audio, Hikaru looks to the ceiling, but Danya looks to the sidewall. And this is just a quirk. I'm not suggesting anything improper. It's just kind of funny. So sometimes when I forget the right word, I might look at the floor. I don't know. I will forget the right word today. So, all right. Fascinating chess. We've got all the games back up there. And I am not going to do eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but I am going to go back to Aaron's game. I'm not sure there's a lot going on, but maybe it'll be the first to end. And if it's the first to end, we want to make sure not to miss a moment. So we have the live position. As I showed you the last time we were here, Danya is going to milk this for the bishop pair. Now he actually got the light squared bishop, not the dark squared bishop. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but he does have the bishop pair. Whatever Aaron did, this is probably the better bishop for him to retain because he doesn't have any dark square weaknesses around his king. Pawns are on both sides of the board. That usually favors the bishops. And I think he'll try to keep the queens on the board. This a5 pawn actually could be the problem. Even if the queens leave the board, if this a5 pawn remains, we can see all of black's pieces are on the king side, and a very simple little tickle like bishop c7 will either win the pawn or will occupy the rook. And when your best piece is going to be occupied, that's a problem. So I take back what I said. Positionally, trading queens might not be the worst thing, but there's actually no way to do so. I'm just kind of thinking ahead. A lot of times what strong players do, and I'm not counting myself in that company, but what Danya would be thinking of is which trades are favorable. Do I want to play the pure minor piece endgame? Which, by the way, he does. If we get to just minor pieces, bishop c7 wins the pawn and probably wins the game. Do I want to play with the heavies on the chessboard? These are all thoughts that go on in both players' minds. Don't be fooled by Aaron's rating there. He's 2350 FIDE, I believe. Maybe he's gone down or something, but I actually forget if we're showing FIDE ratings or Chess.com ratings, but he is a very, very talented player. And FIDE rapid rating, I'm getting some intel, but classical, kids don't play that many rapid and blitz events. Classical, I know he's in the mid 2300s. Okay, so rook over to d8. And yeah, that kind of quasi pins the bishop. If the bishop moves to some lazy square, then guess what? The b pawn, yeah, you guessed it. Rook takes rook, queen takes. This pawn falls. This pawn's gonna fall. And now even if black loses a few queenside pawns, black is collecting them first and black should be just fine. So that will not happen, but just a good little lesson to our viewers there. Viewers, I have a question for you. How do you think Danya has handled the 4 boards so far? You can talk about clock time or about position. Early predictions of the score, let us know in the chat what you guys think. I'm happy to say we've got more than 4,000 people tuning into this battle of generations. Danya is a millennial. I'm not even a millennial. I'm whatever the older one is. What's in between baby boomer and millennial? I think I'm Gen X, which was the society's way of saying that nothing is special about my generation. So there you go. Danya he will tell you he's closer to Gen X than to Gen Y or Gen Alpha. Okay, now Aaron is actually, we're showing his Chess.com rapid rating. It actually just went down a couple of points. Aaron, are you playing a side match while playing Danya? I'm just kidding. I'm sure our team just updated it. But yeah, kind of funny. Aaron is actually got a pretty decent position. If we look at the eval bars of all the games, yeah, I think we have a little bit of action. I was going to say that his equal position is pretty good, but not as good as Alice. Uh-oh, we have more poisoned pawns. This one's the A pawn, but apparently it's not so poisoned. Alice up more than 2 by the eval bar. How did it happen? Let's find out. Inquiring minds want to know. Okay, so we need to actually go back to where it was roughly equal. We haven't seen this game in a while. And let's just stop here. We could go back further, but I think this is an interesting place to just pick up the action. G6. Wow. Who would have the bravery to do that against Danya? Weakening the queen, king side, weakening the knight, but forcing the queen to an awkward square. And if the queen goes here, I don't think G5 would happen. I think that's too loosening, but something like knight H5 might happen. And white's pieces are getting a little bit tangled. Oh, wait a minute. No, knight D3 would happen. I take back what I said. Knight D3 is the problem. So Danya decided he had to bury his queen. She makes a very simple move, activating the worst place piece. That's actually one of our next chess kid lessons. Knight C2 is a threat. So he deals it with playing queen D1. Man, that's really sad. Your queen was on F5 a minute ago. Now it's had to go all the way back to B1 and then D1. The queen is right back where it started. She doubles rooks. Computer says there was better. Well, I guess the computer wants to play knight D3 because apparently the computer got the memo that the B2 pawn is the only thing that this match is about today. We should call this Danya versus the B pawn. Can it be captured? Can it be lost? I think knight D3, the rook moves, knight takes B2, and your knight is never trapped because it always has a home on C4. That's going to be my guess. But she still plays a solid move. I mean, doubling rooks and still threatening this. Now, I guess we do need to tell the viewer why knight C2 wasn't played. And that's because rook C1 would save the day. This knight is pinned, and in fact, the knight's in big trouble. So that would turn the tables, and Alice is too good for that. So she plays rook on A to C7, bishop back to attack the rook. Alice safeguards her rook. Danya makes a trade. Rook B1. That was not on my candidate move list. However, how else do you stop knight C2? You probably have to put one of your rooks on an awkward square. And you know what? It may be that Danya realized that knight here was actually going to be stronger because maybe the B pawn's even more important. But I think one of the queenside pawns is going down. So Danya safeguards the B2 pawn, which makes knight D3 not make as much sense. Alice makes a very simple capture. Ooh, knight C1. Okay, maybe Danya was banking on knight B4. Now, I don't know if knight B4 is a blunder, but knight B4 would tie down the black queen. And apparently it's an okay move to play knight B4, although you are tying down your queen. So knight C1, look at that. Knight going to C1, okay. Where does Danya put the queen? E3? E3 is possible? E3 is likely. He doesn't want to trade queens because, he's down material. Doesn't want to play queen A3. Yeah, I guess we're going to see queen E3. Let's see if he's made a live move. He played queen D1. Okay, that's really sad. The queen is now making her third appearance on D1. Knight D3, and this rook has to move, and Alice is firmly in control. Not only does she have a better position and up a pawn, there's almost no risk to her position. This is a problem. Danya's in trouble, folks. Now, I've got some intel. Something happened, and Danya beat Tani. It may have something to do with that queen trap. So that was a little bit unexpected that it happened so early. We probably want to look, while we have the time, at how that went down. That's probably the only piece of good news, although something has happened in the Bodhana game and Danya has done well there. Let's go first and see how he took out Tani to get his first point of the match. The millennials are up 1-0 over the Gen Wires and the Alphas, and if that's even a term. All right, let's see exactly what happened here. We did see some risks in Tani's position, but the last we saw was this position. And we pointed out that if the queen goes to B2, that rook B1 looked like a problem. That is definitely within Tani's ability to see, but I wonder if he just didn't want to back up. It's really hard when you sack a pawn on like the 6th move of the game to suddenly have to start retreating your pieces. But if you back the bus up here and move the queen to probably not C6, because if you play queen C6, I think knight takes knight might be possible. Queen C6, knight takes knight, and since both queens are hanging, white can get away with this move. So instead, if we back up the bus all the way to, I don't know, C7, then you still have some pressure on the knight. Actually, you've got pretty good pressure on the knight, and it's still a chess game. Maybe not as fun as you wanted, but maybe it's the way to continue. Instead, what we had was queen B2, rook B1. We looked at this. Now, we only looked at queen takes this pawn. I thought that was a little bit better to guard the bishop, but I think after queen takes A2, the same knight takes knight move is going to be played. At this point, is Tani out of options, or could he have played queen C2? The problem with queen C2 is I think knight takes knight still solves all of white's problems. Knight takes knight, and everything is hanging in the black army. Everything. Some things are hanging multiple times. Yeah, that's not going to work for Tani. So instead, he took the a2 pawn, but knight takes knight works, I would say, just as well or maybe even better than before. The bishop is hanging. The rook is hanging. How do you save everything? We've already looked at something very similar to bishop takes queen, rook takes rook. The only difference is the queen was on a3. It matters not. And just to show you what happens in case of rook takes rook, after knight takes knight, rook takes rook. Now it's even worse than the variation I showed you because the queen's not even guarding the bishop. And now I think you take the bishop, right? Because it seems like the black king is going to get checkmated. Although the rook is actually guarded in this variation. I will say this, the simple way to win is probably just queen takes. Because after queen takes, rook takes, pawn takes, you have rook b8 at the end of everything. So once we find one winning variation, we don't have to move on. So unfortunate for Tani, it's actually kind of crazy. He sacked his b pawn in the opening moves of the game, and then lost on the b file. Just as crazy. Sorry, Tani. We love having you. We're going to have you a little bit more. And we just saw you in the next Gen Cup, by the way. Finished third place. You didn't give me a chance to say all of your recent accomplishments. But congratulations, Tani, on third place in the next Gen Cup. But Danya scores the first point. And let's take a look, I think, at the Bodhana game. Because a big advantage for Danya here, too. And if he's able to finish off this game against Bodhana, he will already make sure he does not lose the match, which already must feel like some relief. In fact, what you're seeing on the screen here is basically exactly as I predicted. Bodhana has completely vanquished the entire queen side, or most of it, but this h-pawn is coming down the board. Now, she did do something that I was not able to do, which is to deal with the pawn using the bishop. Remember, for most of what we looked at, the bishop was back here on e6. The pawn was on f5. She managed to push the pawn to f4. Now her bishop has freed itself and is keeping an eye on the pawn. Let's see the last couple moves of the game to see exactly how we got here. And by the way, we're still working on some tech with Grandmaster Ben Feingold. We do have to have him join us at some point. Ben is an old school chess kidder. He's actually got some videos. I'm not sure he'll actually be able to join us today, but we still enjoy the videos he has on Chess Kid under the name Ben Zoo. Apparently that name is 40 years old, which I didn't know. But anyway, we hope to have him maybe on a future broadcast. So what has happened here? Queen went to e3. Remember we said the queen was lined up with the pawn? Now, the rook did take, and this is basically the last time we saw this position. So the question, will Danya take this pawn? He didn't right away. He played rook c5. Okay, that helps actually solidify this pawn. There could be some weird world where he takes this pawn, and the queen is overworked. I'm not saying that this is the actual position where it would happen, but maybe the rook would take, and when the queen takes, then the queen will take here. Now, that's not what's going to happen because black doesn't get enough compensation for the sacrificed exchange. But anyway, this is a position where Danya realizes, hey, I can win this pawn whenever I want. Let's play rook c5, prevent you from ever taking, put a little more pressure on this guy, get ready to double rooks because nothing's happening on the e file. Grandmaster move, right? Keep the pressure going. Okay, so rook c8. Bodhana's going to lose this pawn anyway, so she challenges the rook. We have takes, bishop takes. This pawn is a problem. And rook to b1. Okay, queen check. Okay, some kind of random moves. Rook back, queen takes. And eventually, she frees her bishop. And those arrows are what I drew before. This is the live position. There we go. This is a live position. Now, we often say that it takes two weaknesses to win in an endgame. When there's opposite colored bishops, sometimes you need three. And oh, look at this move. Who saw it coming? Not me. My hand is down. Pawn to e6. What does that do? I don't know. Chat, we're going to have to figure this one out together. If you have any ideas, chat, please let me know. Sometimes we sacrifice pawns to open up lines for our bishop. But our bishop's not really using this diagonal, nor is it using this one. Sometimes we do it to give away or to open up squares. Okay, this square has been opened up. Oh, he's going to play rook takes bishop and promote the pawn. Something tells me that if this is a forced win, we're going to have to grab this position and add it to the Chess.com or Chess Kid puzzle section, because that is kind of genius. Was that the only way to win quickly? Let's go back to this position. I'm going to make a random move because I'm actually kind of curious. Let's say that, I don't know, we push this pawn here. Yeah, the eval bar is going way, way, way down. Okay, I didn't ruin things, but I think Danya may have played the only really dynamic forcing line here. Check. Now, of course, bishop takes is out, right? Because the pawn promotes. King takes is against the rules of chess. That's an easy one. Pawn takes, and he's simply going to target the bishop. Now, you could save the bishop. The problem is the rook was still going to get here. And by the way, if you guys want to see something flashy, and who doesn't, chat? Bishop to g6. I just realized rook h5 is not illegal. Rook h5. The pawn is going downtown. And if the bishop takes, the pawn is still going downtown. And look at the incredibly poor positioning of the black pieces that cannot deal with the pawn. That's pretty cool stuff. Now, I guess in this position, you could simply blockade the pawn, but then the rook would use the G file access. The rook has found a different way to target the bishop. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so what does Bodhana do? She plays a check. And he hasn't moved, not because he's thinking. Actually, he could be thinking about bishop to e1. He's probably just focusing on the other boards. That's my guess. So sometimes this happens in a clock simul where you're like, why doesn't he just play the move? I could play that move. It's probably because he is playing something else. By the way, he's not going to play this move. And the reason I say that is because now, if he ever takes this bishop, then the rook will take with check. And when the king moves, then the pawn will take the rook, and his rook will very amazingly have access back to deal with the h-pawn. Okay, so there's no world that I can see in which he's going to block with the bishop. And as you've already guessed, he's not going to block with the rook. The rook's job is either to sacrifice for the bishop or to be the BFF to the h-pawn. So we're just kind of waiting here for him to play the move king h2. And he's played it. And now Bodhana has 6 minutes and 45 seconds to figure out how to stop the h-pawn. Bodhana, best of luck. Okay, I would rather you try to figure it out than me. All right, let's go around the world here. We have not peeked at Aaron Mendes's game in a while. The, I think, 12-year-old I am from Canada. He may have turned 13. Who knows? Kids, they grow up really fast these days. Let's go to the live position. It is opposite colored bishop. So Danya has been deprived of his bishop pair. What does he have in return? Well, he's got the more active queen. And does he have the safer pawns? I don't know. Eval bar says equal, and I think that's probably right because he's going to lose this pawn. He's going to win this pawn. But actually, it's Aaron who'll have the passed pawn. I'm not saying it's going anywhere, but the problem, I think, is that the queen has to stay on this diagonal. So the queen wasn't able to go grabbing pawns. First of all, there's a little quick tactic here. If the queen had captured the pawn, then queen check already, loose pieces drop off. Even the great Danya Naroditsky's loose pieces would drop off. So instead, he had to play the queen to b7, targeting this pawn. He had no way to guard the c pawn. And now if you're black, you probably just grab the pawn. First of all, if queen takes pawn, you can't lose after the queen trade. Even I could hold the position against Danya. And after bishop takes, you can always play bishop back to g7. Do you have a more exotic move? Maybe. Maybe king h6 is legal. But Aaron's not worse. Can Danya throw some tricks at the board? There's not a lot of light square weaknesses to target. So I don't know. However, I will say this. Danya has positioned himself for a match win. He's already got the point against Tani. He's completely winning against Bodhana. I don't see how she holds that endgame. So if this was an Olympiad, he'd be asking himself for a draw, okay? Because that will clinch the match. So if he draws this game, things are looking good despite the fact that Alice has the better of him. And in fact, that would be a total repeat from the last time we had Kids versus Stars back in episode 3, where Alice was the only person to beat Anish Giri, but yet her team still lost 2.5 to 1.5. So we will see if something unexpected can happen. Maybe Aaron can pull something out of the hat here. Aaron actually guarded his pawn, which, by the way, that's great team camaraderie, because I think you have to guard the pawn and try to win this one for free to have any hope of winning. Now, don't laugh at me. I know that he's playing Danya and it's opposite colored bishops, but you have to try. You have to push in equal position, even if your opponent is 300 points higher than you. So now let's hear Danya's thoughts on what's going on, because a lot has transpired since we heard from him last. So I'm going to go quiet here. We're just going to plug into his audio and listen to his thoughts on what's remaining so far.
Huh. Let's see what Alice played. She did go rook d2. I want to pressure her clock here, so I'm going to move here first. Wait. Knight a6. No, queen b3 is a move. I'm probably losing here. Yeah. Whatever, just gonna move. Let's go queen 8. Let's repeat moves here. I don't think I have any winning chances left. Let's not get pig-headed. So obviously for folks at home, this is queen 8. I think it's a dead draw. I don't think I have a single way to keep this game going. Otherwise, I would absolutely go for it. Very well done by Aaron. Let's commend him on excellent defense here. Fantastic tactical vision. And I'll compliment him properly afterwards, because you've got 2 games left here. This one should be over momentarily. And if I can swindle Alice, because luck has been mostly on my side today, I'll be happy. But man, is she a tough customer. She's under 2 minutes, though. And I've got 40. Okay, rook d4 as expected. Rook d4 as expected.
Hey, Danya, there's no good time to jump in. This will be my last time. Okay. I was going to ask you if you're thinking about. You're doing fine on the clock, trust me. But I was going to ask you if you're starting to think about match strategy or just each game specifically. But right as I said that, you took the draw with Aaron. So just give me, kind of boilerplate here on what do you think's happening in the match so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty. I'll give myself a pat on the back. I will, of course, check the Tani game because it had some incredible complications. But I'm pretty happy with how I kept my composure. I paused at the right moment. And I think Tani, he got excited with some of the resources. So I'm really happy with that game. I think I was playing really well against Aaron, but I got too cute. And I think I trusted my gut a little bit too much. Maybe I should have spent longer. I always am paranoid about losing on time. But that's part of the Naroditsky package. And, it's all credit to Aaron. That was an amazing defensive job. And I don't think I had any ways to keep the game going. Like I just simply didn't see a move. So it wasn't really as much match strategy as it was like a practical decision. And, with Bodhana, unless I mouse slip my rook, I should be able to win soon. And I think it comes down to this game, which doesn't surprise me at all because Alice is an absolute beast. But I actually think if I can maintain both of my knights on the board without blundering them, which is going to be a tall order, Mike, I fancy my chances are decent here, given the time situation.
Fascinating. Okay, I know you want to use the clock as a weapon, so I'm going to take myself off the air, and we will talk to you when the match is over. I know things are looking good for you, but thanks, Danya, and good luck trying to swindle Alice.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we wanted to pop in there because he did say before he popped in that he's trying to use the clock as a weapon, as he has every right to. But man, you can see how fast Danya is. He's already taken care of 2 games, and he's got 40 minutes remaining against Alice. And against Bodhana, he doesn't really need much more time because that H-pawn is pretty unstoppable. As unstoppable as Danya realizes as the slow advancement of the years. So we had a nice pre-match chat about getting older there. So remember, there is one salted caramel brownie on the line. Unless you're from Charlotte, you probably do not know about the majesty of Amelie's French Bakery. Used to be open 24 hours. Not sure if it still is. I'm no longer open 24 hours, okay? 9 p.m., I'm hitting the bed. I had to wake up this morning and see who won the Oscars. But who's winning the chess Oscar today? That's actually a real thing they used to give away. Danya is. Danya has a 1.5 points. It's looking very, very good against Bodhana, but the match is still up for debate. Let's go back to the Bodhana game, because I have a feeling this game with Alice is going to be the last one. And the H-pawn is still inexorably advancing down the board. Danya, there you go. Another SAT word for you. He's not going to trade rooks until he's sure the pawn can come down the board. For example, if he moves the rook and then they trade, let's just say he takes the pawn, all of his like extra pawns are on one side of the board, and the bishop might go back, and probably white is still winning, but you don't want to have that happen. He has no advantage on the queen side. So opposite colored bishops, if you're only winning on one side of the board, you have to really, really, really watch out for blockades. I am, of course, contractually obligated to say that Magnus Carlsen doesn't believe in blockades, but this has become a little bit of a chess meme. In fact, with chagrin, I can say I actually asked him about that quote at the Champions Chess Tour finals in Norway. I feel bad that we always make him bring up that quote. I don't know why that quote stuck so much. So, of course, there are positions that are fortresses, but he was making a larger point. And Magnus, if you're watching, welcome. By the way, I will be auctioning off Little Peshka, starting bid $36,000. So if you're a podcast host in the state of Texas and you've got extra big pockets, you can buy this for $36,000 and then have me on your podcast. I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay, bishop to h7. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, Magnus Carlsen's jeans were sold for $36,000, and the winning bidder hosts a podcast. I believe it's medically based, and wants Magnus on the show. But for right now, we are lucky to have Danya on the show. Again, Danya is not going to play rook g7. I don't think there's any way he's going to do that. He probably has a little bit of a dilemma here. If you move your rook to a random square, by the way, I'm not even sure what a random square is, I guess g5, then you might lose this pawn. However, then the rook would go back to g7 and fork the king and the bishop. Okay, he's actually guarding his pawn through a still indirect, although slightly more direct way by counterattacking the bishop. His plan is to guard g6, can be with a pawn, more likely with a king, and when the pawn gets to g6, white wins. So it might mean he walks his king up the board. He might go here, and then he might play f4 to guard his pawn. Then he might play king here. Then he might play king here. Then he might push his pawn. Then he might push his pawn. And I know I'm giving him 17 moves in a row, but there also may not be a lot black can do to stop it. You know what he's probably analyzing right now? He's analyzing rook takes. In fact, without even me analyzing it very much, I can tell you it's almost certainly winning. Rook takes, and then bishop g7. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't play it. This counterattack by the black king, way too slow. And the pawn is just getting there super fast. This is the flashy and the safe way and the quickest way to win. Danya, why'd you not play it? I actually don't know. So what he did instead was he just pushed, and then black played king b5, and he can still play it. Oh, he played it the second time. He still gets the double exclam. Now the, I don't know, what would you call it? The specific reason might be, this is going to be kind of crazy. If we go back to this position, if he takes the bishop and then the rook takes, this pawn is not hanging yet. So he waited for the king to move to b5. Of course, I'm kidding. And of course, he could play rook check and win the pawn. Anyway, I don't know why. Maybe he didn't see it until the second time. But anyway, he got the job done because rook takes, bishop g7. Bodhana will probably play all the way to checkmate. And here we go. Danya's just going to push the pawn. And these are all moves that have been played. And it's mate. There we go. Danya wins. 2.5 to something. Okay. 2.5 points. He has clinched the match. Congratulations to Danya, defending the shield for the millennial generation. And we have only one game left. So we're going to go there. Danya was hoping to use the clock as a weapon. Remember, though, there is a 15-second increment for every move. So Alice is not in dire straits with 2 minutes remaining on her clock. But there is definitely a lot of personal desire to get as big of a score as you can. So Danya is not going to roll over and just be happy with his 2.5 points. He wants to pull out at least a draw. Nobody wants to lose a chess game ever under any circumstances. Okay, so Alice has 2 extra pawns. Not a lot of counterplay going for white. Not even sure what white's counterplay could be. Even in some weird world where Danya gets his knight here and a rook to the d file and wins the pawn. I know I've just given him 7 moves in a row. She's probably still winning with the 2 against 1. So she shores up her knight. That looks like one of those little itty bitty moves that strong players do. Some positions require you to think, hey, how important is time? How important do I need to win this game quickly? This is not one of those positions. White's not doing much, so she's just shoring up her position as much as she can. Chat, while we're waiting for Kids versus Stars episode 4 to unfold, tell us, who would you like to see in episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8? Which Grandmaster do you want us to get to play against 4 kids? You can even name the 4 kids as well if you want. But what I'd really love to know is, who do you think would be a great personality to play this match? Because we have more salted caramel brownies we can give out. We've got some people that want to do this. I do want to say, for Anish and for Danya and for some of the other content creators who've played against kids, Anna Kremling we've done matches with, Gotham, of course, Eric Rosen has played. It's pretty thankless. You're playing for posterity against kids. If you win, you beat a kid. And if you lose, you lost to a kid. So I know, as a former kid, as a guy who used to play kids every week on Beat Fun Master Mike, I know it's pretty thankless. So I'm going to read the chat here and see. Okay, we've got a vote for Hans. We'll look into that. I think he's busy doing something else right now. Gotham would be interesting. Now, Gotham has played in a couple of our events in the past where it's 4 versus 4. That was more of a Scheveningen, sorry to all my Dutch friends who just had their ears pop, where all of the streamers, all the content creators played the kids. So everybody played like 4 games. And Gotham loved it. It's good content, honestly. So yeah, maybe we'll have Gotham back. This is a different element though, playing against 4 people at the same time. Not to say Gotham couldn't do it, but we would, want to make it balanced. I'll put it that way. Okay. Hikaru would be great. I totally agree. Yeah. And the nice thing about Hikaru is, just like with Anish, we could get 4 super strong kids. We got Anish and Danya 4 super strong kids. Imagine if we had Hikaru versus like Yej Erdemis, the young phenom from Turkey, or Mark Andrizi from France, or some of these other like ridiculously young 2600s. That'd be pretty amazing. So Hikaru, if you're listening, hey, it's great content. So Gukesh, yeah, Gukesh would be good. Imagine getting a world champion to do a Chess Kid event. That'd be great. I'm actually, Gukesh and I respect each other a lot. We spent a lot of time together this last quarter of the year, so that'd be great. I like your suggestions. Polgar would be good. You know what I'm going to tell you? I think Gukesh is more gettable than Judith. Judith, she doesn't play a lot of competitive games. She is a fantastic ambassador, and by the way, no slight on her. I don't play competitive chess very much, but yeah, it's going to be hard to get her to play some competitive chess. In fact, pop quiz chat. This is not like for realsies, but besides her last chess festival in Budapest, where she played a simul, in fact, I'm going to include that. What was the last published grandmaster that Judith played over the board? I don't think there were any grandmasters in her global chess festival in Budapest. There were some IMs for sure. She played against Sagar Shah, some other people. I think Fausti played some moves. But who is the last grandmaster that Judah has played in a game that's been published in a chess database? I'm actually not positive of my trivia question, but I'm like 40% positive. I have a game in mind, in case you guys are wondering. All right, so rook to a1. He's going to counterattack this pawn. And he's hoping for a trick. Like maybe there's some giant trick where his rook gets the 7th rank and knight e6. But remember, Alice has defeated, I think she defeated Wesley So last year in a Chess.com event. Did she ever beat Hikaru? I think she did well against Hikaru. I'm not sure if she ever won. Okay, so she's actually going to double her pawns just to reduce the pressure, which is a concession maybe she didn't have to make, but, it's like a very slight structural concession to get a lot of the pressure off of her position. So Danya's trying to decide, do I reduce my attacking force by about 25% just to create this minor inconvenience of the doubled pawns and still have my b2 pawn completely hanging. Not a great choice to have, but it's not Alice's job to give Danya good choices. But Danya's still grinding. He coached all weekend. I mean, just if there's another Renaissance man in chess that's more Renaissance than Danya, you have to tell me who it is. He wrote a chess book when he was 14. He's played in the US Championship. He's probably the best commentator around. I mean, I know when the clock gets below a minute, just clear out of Danya's way because he excels at bringing the excitement very clearly. I know I talk fast. He talks fast at a 2650, 2700 level. He also, like I said, he's a fantastic coach and gave up his entire weekend to coach kids in Raleigh, North Carolina at the state championship, helping out the Charlotte Chess Center. So he also speaks 8 or 9 languages, whatever the number is. And he brings us a lot of chess history during his commentary. So he's the best of the best. But right now, Alice is trying to say, hey, chess is just a game. I don't need to know 7 languages. So rook to e1. And now if she goes back, then Danya will repeat the position. Okay, so she puts the knight in the way. You can see what she's doing here. She's plugging the open files. And by the way, in doing so, she's putting a lot of pressure on f2. However, I'm going to say something. That's actually a very risky pawn to capture. I know it's not even hanging just yet, but if you ever capture this pawn, that releases the power of the rook and the queen, and then potential knight moves could be a problem. Of course, the king being on the diagonal is also a problem. I'm just saying if you're Alice, you don't want complications when you've got 45 seconds. Of course, Danya is in a different boat. He wants those complications, but what can he do here? h4, h5, that barely weakens black's position. The idea is if I trade pawns, I finally get to play knight e6. It's a pipe dream though. Even if your pawn gets to h5, pawn to g5 probably fixes all of black's problems. Okay, so what did he do? He played on the other side of the board. He played b4. Okay. He obviously just playing for tricks here, but what's the trick? If queen takes, then knight takes, removes the defender of this knight, but actually black is still winning. I guess the queen just goes sideways and defends the knight. However, the loosening of the knight means the rook is in play a little bit more. So even if she takes with the queen, apparently she's okay. If she takes with the rook, what on earth is he doing by sacking the pawn? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe he was just making a move. Okay, it's all about the B pawns today. It's all about the Benjamins. But I don't understand the move. But okay, he's lost anyway, so he had to play something. And I apologize. Let's go back to the live position. It was taken by the rook. That was the safer choice. King g2. That doesn't even fix the problem of the pawn being in a pin. It's now just pinned by the rook, not the queen. Classic Sophie's choice, Solomon's choice. Somebody's choosing and they're not happy about it, okay? My references may not be the most apt. Okay, so rook to d4. I guess she's just going to play rook to d2 and target the pawn a 4th time. Now, why did she not play rook on b to b2? Oh, knight d3, grasshopper. Knight d3. And the computer says she's still winning. How is that possible? I don't know. Can she take and win by some kind of heroic mechanism? I don't think you want to play that move if you're black. No, there's way too much risk. Yeah, perhaps even if you sacrifice the exchange, you're still winning. By the way, you have this move maybe at some point. Okay, but why on earth would you ever do this? Again, she wants to win like a grandmaster, reduce counterplay, make the position simple. We are in the live position, yes. And that stops knight d3. She's going to bring this other rook down. Danya's just sitting there. What to do? You know, he doesn't want to resign. Even if he wins the match, to resign this one leaves a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth. By the way, when this game is over, we're going to get both Danya and I believe Alice as well for little post-game interviews. Alice is really well-spoken and probably going to be the one winner. Or at least she'll draw, right? She can't possibly lose. But man, what a sad position to play as white. Your pieces are completely tangled up with nowhere to go. There's no counterplay. I don't even know what to do. So play on the clock, I guess. But if you could create any complications, you would actually make Alice think. Right now, she's not being made to think. She's just going to play rook to d2 on the next turn. And probably you have to sack the exchange after rook d2. Unless you play knight h3, I don't want to live in that world, though. We could end up in a position where she plays rook d2. Well, let's just go ahead and play knight h3 first, okay? She plays rook d2. None of white's pieces can move, and then the pawns just start walking down the chessboard. Might be what happens, actually. That's kind of a cruel way to win, but in some ways it's the professional way because white can't get any counterplay going. All right, it's not looking good, though. There's actually almost more pieces than squares on the king's side. Kind of like that old ritual in college in the 60s, not that I was around then. How many college students can you get in a Volkswagen Beetle? My parents have told me stories. Once again, I'd like to repeat, I was not around in the 60s. Okay, so a set of rooks were traded. However, this pawn is still in big trouble. White can barely move, and I'm wondering if we'll see a5 here. What does white do? Just play a5 or play b4. The b pawn is the star of today's show. So maybe if you push queen check and you lose your a pawn. Okay, so this diagonal is like what Danya is going for. Oh, she plugs that diagonal too. Oh man, there's just no let up. You can see hand on face. By the way, Danya, is that a flashy watch or is that a Timex? Okay, whatever kind of watch he's wearing, that's about all we can see. He's trying to play on the clock, but can't get anything going. Okay, so knight e2. Trying to force the queen off the diagonal. I think queen b2 is the first move that comes to mind. Queen b2 forcing the knight to move. Yep, it was played. Knight will almost certainly go back. Okay, so he's toggling. She's got to do better than just going back and forth. You can even play queen here because f3 is not a move, it's pinned. Okay, now you see him playing instantly. He's playing only on the clock. We're almost getting to a position where he could play rook takes and win with 3 pawns versus knight. I would not be surprised if that was winning. But actually, it would be 4 pawns versus knight. I didn't count the f pawn. Sorry, Mr. F pawn. Okay, he's finally threatening knight e6 check. We mentioned it 5 harvest moons ago. The knight is finally threatening. The queen actually got somewhere active. And you know what? I bet she's looking at rook takes f2 now. Okay, let's play it quickly because I know Danya's going to play quickly. Takes, 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 push. Is the knight fast enough? The knight is not fast enough. Yeah, that just wins. There you go. There's your winning line. She's going to calculate it super quick. She'll play it if she says, oh, she plays it. Perfect calculation by Alice. She will go on to defeat Danya. You can see the curl on the side of his mouth. He's bitten his lip. Okay, he didn't take the knight because he knew what was going to happen. He keeps the knight on the board. You can actually still push. Yep, the knight was going to run back. It's going to go to this square. If it goes to c3, then b4 would happen. So he plugs it the correct way. Knight d3. Look at this move. The knight can't take because then the pawn is free. And yeah, b4, b3 is coming. Here comes b4. And can't play b3. You can play knight c1 or knight c5. Knight c1 was chosen. Here comes b3. Okay, by the way, we didn't get back to our trivia question. The last rated game she played was Sam Shankland, but the last published game was in Retiro Park in Madrid, Spain in 2022 when she beat Magnus. Obviously not rated, but I know that game has made it to the database because, there you go, because it is. Alice wins, though. Danya defends the shield of the millennials. He wins 2.5 to 1.5. The kids are defeated once again by the stars. Danya has won by the same score that Anish has won, but deja vu, it is Groundhog Day because Alice has once again been the only winner of the kids section, okay? When we come back, we are going to see, we're going to hear from the winner of this game and the winner of the match. Both Alice and Danya will join us after we come back from the break. But before we hear from them, I do want to tell you that pawns get zapped up into space. Oh, yes, they do. Pawns serving up a cup of coffee. We don't do boring merch over at Chess.com. You can see I'm actually wearing some Chess Kid merch right now. So I'd like you to think about upgrading your closet. It's maybe been a while. And your home with t-shirts. We got mouse pads. We got clocks and more. Maybe Peshka is waiting for you, but not this one. It has a special drawing on it. So visit go.chess.com/merch. or use the command !merch in the chat to shop. All right, everybody, here comes the quick break. When we come back, Danya and Alice will join us. We'll hear their thoughts on this very exciting match.
Wear your love of chess on your sleeve with all new apparel and accessories from the Chess.com merch store. Maybe you simply want a clock that will never run out, or a mouse pad that will finally unlock your speed chess potential. Whether you play chess to get energized with your morning coffee, or play into the wee hours of the night and witness the occasional alien abduction, we've got something for every king, queen, and knight in shining armor. Even gift cards for your loved ones who've caught the chess bug. So check out the Chess.com shop for apparel, accessories, and more. Grab your favorites before they're gone.
I'm Gotham Chess, and I'm about to film the most extreme chess challenge I've ever done. I'm gonna be playing 4 games at the same time, and every kid is gonna be armed with a giant super soaker gun. Let's see if I can win all 4 games. Why did I sign up for this? This is like extreme sports. Oh my gosh, I can't even see. These two are like really brutal. I feel like I haven't even been attacked on that side. Why are you all defending your kings? Like, just let me win. Okay, all right, that's fair. I'm gonna be so excited when your water guns run out of water. I'm just gonna like... Oh yeah. How about you all do it at the same time for like 30 seconds straight? Hey, it's just... Yay! I play this. It is mean, yes. How does she still have water? Oh my god. Checkmate. Good game. For some reason? Well, that means he probably enjoys chess, right? For some reason. No? That was so fast. I'm down to 2 boards. Ah! How do you still have so much water?
I haven't played.
Okay, no problem.
Before I move, my checkmate, I just I'm done.
Okay, yay. Ah, I had a feeling she was lying. That's checkmate. Good game. I can sacrifice my queen. I'm just saying, you're so mean. Ah! Good game. You lasted the longest. I'm trying to shake your hand. Woo! That was very fun. Thank you for volunteering. You know, actually, I feel like getting revenge.
I chose to play the Sicilian as my main weapon with black about 35 years ago. E4, C5. C5 is an excellent move that controls the D4 square, and when white plays D4, we're ready to capture it. This is, of course, on the Sicilian, and I think it's a really good opening for beginner and intermediate players. A lot of lower-level club players only know E4, E5. You'll have excellent chances out of the opening, and I chose the variations carefully based on my own experience of playing the Sicilian. Knight B5, we play queen b4. Now our queen can escape to a5, which defends c7. It looks good to fork the pieces, but after king d8, all of white's pieces are attacked. So knight takes, queen takes c3 check, attacking the king. We're gonna take the bishop next move. Black has an extra pawn, and this knight is trapped.
Welcome back to the post-game interviews of Kids vs. Stars episode 4. Once again, the Stars got the best of the kids, but once again, Alice did her part. Danya gets by the kids 2.5 to 1.5. I have to say, he did it really quickly. There is a bank of time remaining on his clock. Danya is going to be able to enjoy his Monday evening because I know this is a very, very stressful enterprise. But I'm joined here by the double winners. Danya, the winner of the match. Alice, the winner of her game. Welcome to you both.
Good to be here.
Mike.
And now Danya's streaming, so his stream went quiet for a while while he's waiting for me to talk. But first of all, we'll start with you, Danya, since you are the winner of the match, and that is what the whole game was all about today. Were there any surprises in how this went? Did it go much quicker than you thought, or did people play different openings? And I know you prepped, but give us your overall thoughts on this match.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, massive congrats to Alice on just an amazing game. I'm overall really, really happy with my quality of play. During the break, I quickly checked, my accuracies, and I was really trying to give it my A game, focus on calculation. It always, despite all my experience hitting clock simuls, it's the same thing over again. And I don't want to give off the impression that I'm playing fast because I don't, am trying to phone it in. I genuinely, this is just my strategy. And I'm always surprised, when I have 40 minutes, I'm why didn't I spend another 5 minutes? So the games were moving really, really quickly. And of course, in Tani's game, that was my biggest concern by far. And it's crazy how quickly the narrative just sort of flips in a simul. One second, you're fully focused on one game, then suddenly you make a mistake on another board. And the moment Alice started threading knight c2, I realized this was the game that was going to be the bane of my existence for the rest of the simul, and definitely it's going to be in all my nightmares tonight. It reminds me of a game that my former coach played, but I'll get to that later.
Yeah, we want to talk about Alice's game. We want to hear from Alice. But before we talk to Alice, just one quick question. You were able to do something Anish was not able to do, which was to get rid of one of the games rather quickly. How important was it for you to win that game against Tani so early, to be able to narrow down from 4 games to 3?
Really important. I mean, it's you have AP Spanish and AP English homework, but then you have an exam that you're absolutely unprepared for. So you need to take care of the homework so that you can, start studying for the test that you're about to fail. Unfortunately, I ended up failing the test anyway, but that was, thanks to Alice's excellent play, I think I did my best. So it was very important. And, Tani found some really cool ideas. I just got incredibly lucky that it was tempo for tempo. If he had been castled, none of this would have worked. So I was just even a blind squirrel finds a nut from time to time. I just stumbled into these lines, and I don't think he found the most resilient path forward. But yeah, it definitely took the burden off for sure.
Actually, that'd be a fascinating tiebreaker. You versus Alice in a SAT test. I don't actually know. You'd probably still both finish with perfect scores. But Alice, I want to talk to you. I know you're a great student, but we know you as a great chess player. You are now 2-0 in these last 2 Kids versus Stars. You beat Anish, you beat Danya. What makes you so good in this format?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a bit of deja vu. I won both games, but then we ended up losing the match. I feel like for me, I guess it might be a style of play. I'm not sure, because my results were obviously very good. I think probably because in most of my games, it involves a lot of deep calculation in order to beat me. Otherwise, you would have to spend a lot of time. I think also that's how I sometimes lose in classical. But for the simul games, of course, when Danya and Anish both had to play against 3 other opponents, all of whom were quite good, so they couldn't put their full attention to the game.
Well, let's jump into this game. As Danya noted, once your knights were threatening to go to c2, he knew he was in some trouble. So let's go to a key moment in the game. Where would you guys like to start? Where did you think you took over, Alice? Maybe we'll start with you since you won the game.
I think around the time e4, c5, I was oh man, I let the Sicilian. It's time to time to
you forgot to play c3 on move 2, by the way. But okay.
Alice, go ahead. You can take the lead on what your perspective was on the key moments, because I think I overestimated my position at some point after the pawns were traded in the center, and probably played a role in how quickly your knights got into the right squares.
Yeah, I feel like I mean honestly like I'm not sure. I wasn't too surprised by the opening choice. I mean like I was surprised by the opening, but not by like the choice to go into some sideline. I saw like the positions I got was quite good. Like once I got D5 in. I did think maybe later, like once I played something like B5, um like after D4 I might have to like be careful in case your knights get to like B3 and C5, but I wasn't ever too concerned about my position. And I think once I played Queen B6, I was quite happy because it appears like if you play something like Knight B3, then I get Knight E4, and otherwise you're stuck to like passive defense against the G4 pawn. But yeah, I think the critical point was like after, like for me, after Rook C8, Queen D1, then I thought like it should be quite good. And actually, when I played Rook C7 on move 20, I forgot I had Knight D3. Like I thought right after I played Rook C7 that maybe I could have played like Knight D3 and taken on B2. Um, but
Yeah, we
yeah,
talked
even
about that on the live show.
Yep.
yeah, even so, I think like Rook C7 is still like I mean I get complete control over the C file, and Knight C2 is honestly just very hard to prevent.
Yeah. No, Rook C7, I like saw Knight D3 and I thought, okay, I'll try to complicate the game. But in the end, like Rook C7 turned out to be like a very mature decision because it keeps all of the options open. I couldn't find a response that I liked to it. I kept, like when you start going in circles and looking at lines you looked at like 4 times, like, maybe I'll find some treasure at the bottom of the ocean. And then I spotted Bishop G3 and got really excited. And I honestly just missed Bishop D6. And the exchange of bishops, it like changes exactly nothing about any of the threats. Like it does not actually change anything. And like once you lose one pawn, like that's just the beginning of White's troubles. So I think my actual mistake was Queen B1 was Queen F5. Like that probably I should repeat moves Queen B3, and you can probably go Knight C6. And objectively, I think the best is just to go back to D3. I mean, it's equal. But Queen F5, I wanted to induce G6, and I underestimated the weakness of the C2 square. And then there were these queen trap lines, Mike, that were really cool. There were 2 of them.
Okay.
One I spotted and one Alice spotted, and I think it would be nice to show, I think, just how rich
Sure.
Black's resources are. If instead of Queen B1 on move 19, I go Queen F4, I was considering this on my stream briefly. Black has Knight D3.
Yep.
Queen takes H6. Looks like White has some counterplay, but Knight G4. And the queen is trapped on H6.
Wow. We stopped after Knight D3. We didn't go this far.
Well, I didn't go further than Knight G4 because my queen would not go further than move 20.
Yes.
And Alice, I already forgot where the second queen trap was much more impressive. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
I'll let you take it away.
Knight C1. Actually, it happened in the game. After I took on A2, Queen B3, Knight C1. The point is, if Queen E3, then Knight G4, like the queen is getting trapped on E3. I mean, Queen A3 is still possible, but there I can I can always take on A3 and then
Oh
maybe
yeah.
just completely win.
Okay, but
Or I
yeah,
can play
I would
B4.
rather just stack the queen than go Queen A3. Oh, before
Yeah.
Queen A1.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
But
There's.
no.
This is where you would turn off your stream and never come to another Chess Kid event again.
If I would
Great
move,
stuff.
I would
And
depart the premises of Charlotte. The Chess Center will not invite me back with a queen like that.
well, great stuff, Alice. You really never let Danya back in the game after your knight started getting to C2. Got a couple questions, though, from the chat. We'd like to involve them. This question is to Danya. How do you think playing a simul affects a player's level?
I mean, I don't think a single simul, substantively affects. It's like, I don't know, eating a Kit Kat bar is not going to, necessarily give you diabetes, but I don't think they, like, even if you give a lot of simuls, I don't necessarily think it affects your level negatively. It's definitely a different strategy, right? It's like you have to ration your energy. At times you have to play impulsively because that's the only way. And, you had in the old days, people like Reshevsky and Fischer, simuls used to be the main way that a professional player would make money, who was not a world champion contender. So you had, Fischer, Capablanca, Alekhine, all of them gave like simul tours, even Steinitz, Zukertort, sometimes blindfold simuls, and they're exhausting. Like Morphy gave a blindfold simul, I think, on 8 boards, and then he was talked out of giving a blindfold simul on 20 boards because his friends literally said his head would explode. So it's, it's pretty grueling, but it's a lot of fun. And I think it does definitely help build your concentration.
And thanks for that question from Krishna21234, not to be confused with Krishna21235, but it is a good lead-in to the next question from Kevin C4455 to Alice. When are you going to be the star in this next episode? Are you ever going to play the simul against 4 kids?
Yeah, I guess you have to invite me back. I think right now, like the kids these days, I'd be a bit scared of giving a simul against all of them. But, someday when I'm older, then, like I'll be the one who's losing or beating the kids.
Okay, well, it will happen someday. I remember when Carissa was younger than you, and now she's gone on to become an adult. So, but it was good. I hope this was good training for the America's Cup, and then you're going back to defend your title soon. Next question is still for you, Alice. Also from Krishna21234, getting the rare double mention. Is chemistry your favorite subject? I think that's in a reference to the periodic table behind you.
Yeah, so this room that I'm in is actually my brother's old study room. So he's like more STEM oriented than I am.
Okay.
I'm not good at chemistry or like any of the periodic table of elements stuff behind me, but yeah, I mean, it does look nice in the background, I guess. That's just like
okay, Danya, name a rare earth metal. That question is from Funmaster Mike.
Oh, God. Name a rare earth metal.
I can't verify if you're right.
I know I was seeing noble gases like lanthanides and actinides, rare earth metal. Oh, wait, that's been in the news. I was like, where did I hear this phrase before?
Yeah. I'm messing with you.
Okay, that's not an element. Sorry. I was actually trying to think of a pun with like any one of the elements, but I ran out of gas. But my attempt was a noble one, so,
Yeah, they're floating around or in the ground, and somehow they help us, and my cell phone works, and I don't ask too many questions either. So, all right, fantastic. Well, last question I'm going to give to Alice. Alice, because you've beaten 2 grandmasters in a row here, who would you like to be your next victim? Who would you like us to invite as the next grandmaster here? Do you have any favorites?
I mean, like, I feel like for me, it'd just be like anybody getting the opportunity to play against any of these strong grandmasters would be really great. But like if you invite Magnus, pay him like a lot, the amount that he got for his genes, then I'll play and hopefully I'll probably lose, but it'd be interesting to play against him.
Danya or Alice, any way to get Magnus off the golf course? I don't know how to get him off the golf course anymore.
Let's think. You have to say that.
Make it rain.
I don't know. Title Tuesday, you have to quintuple the prize fund, and I don't know. Like I'm drawing a blank. You have to.
Okay.
You have to go fast or slow, and you just have to tell him that I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Yeah, just the mention of Magnus just makes me at a loss for words. That would be awesome.
We've never had Magnus do anything related to Chess Kid, but anyway, we will definitely come back. Our goal is to do a couple of these per year. Alice, you've definitely earned yourself an invite. You've got another grandmaster.
Maybe if you've gotten 3 out of 2 at least. I mean, come on, you've been slacking, and I think your teammates are just like, we need a real MVP. Just kidding. Yeah, just amazing game, Alice. Really was an honor to play, and I'll be analyzing this, and I'll be seeing the knight on C1 in my nightmares tonight.
Well, thanks to you both for your time. I know, Alice, you're going to go prepare for the America's Cup. Danya, you have time to go catch the Warriors beat the Hornets. You got done in time, so go watch some NBA basketball if you can call it that. And I want to thank you both for playing today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mike, for covering, and it was a pleasure. Bye.
All right, well, there you go. There is the final score, 2.5 to 1.5. Danya squeaks by the kids. Alice wins again. We already do actually have one grandmaster that we're in talks with to play another match in the summertime. We'll let you know when that ends up being confirmed, but it's going to be quite exciting. And by the way, Alice will play another grandmaster in a couple of days because she seems to play the finals of the America's Cup against Grandmaster Irina Krush every year. After losing to Irina twice in 2022 and 2023, she was finally able to beat Irina in 2024. So that is almost certain to be a matchup that you can see Alice in coming up really soon, the America's Cup. Danya, you'll see because he's a commentator, he's a streamer, and we love to see Danya. It was great having him today. That is all for the Kids versus Stars episode 4. Episode 5 will come up. I'd like to thank everybody that watched, all the good questions we had from the chat. Always cool to see the Battle of Generations. And thank you to every member of my team who made this possible. And if you're missing Ben Feingold, he's a streamer too. Go check him out. He's got his own channel in case you haven't figured it out. He streams like every day. We'll try to get him on some sort of future show. So thank you to my team, both Chess.com and Chess Kid. We'll say goodbye for now, and we'll catch you on the next Kids versus Stars. Congratulations to Danya.